Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Future Proof Use podcast. Go F yourself. My name is John Lovig, and I'm joined by my fellow co host and co founder, Aaron McKelkey.
Good day, sir.
Good day. So, today we thought it'd be pertinent to start talking about career pivots for teachers. April is Career Pivot Month for us, and teachers happen to be a population we know quite a bit about thanks to Aaron's expertise. So, we thought it'd be a good topic to cover. Aaron, what are you hearing out there from teachers, and why do you think this is kind of a population that really wants to understand career pivots?
Yeah, I think there's a growing list of teachers who have always been in the profession, but either daydream about getting out or feel uncertain about their own future. And they quickly realize the longer I've been in, the more stuck that I feel in education. And I've felt that way kind of the last year and a half, 2 years. I've gone through that myself and work with a lot of people and friends and even DMs from LinkedIn followers that ask me questions about this stuff like, where do I start? How do I get out? Because I've been an English teacher for 12 years or a special education teacher for 8, and I have nothing corporate or private. I've always been a school teacher. How do I start the pivot process? And what could I do?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, you're a shining example of someone who is mid pivot, right? You've taken and carved out time for a side hustle and consulting, and now are getting to a point where you might be able to leverage that more than you had been in the past.
Yeah, I just substituted my time with what I was doing that wasn't going to help or be productive because I didn't add any hours to my day. I just had to cut things out and replace them with things that I thought would help position me to pivot or do my own thing. And I think the biggest one for teachers, you see this as an expert in the hiring process and job searches, is where would I fit? What could I do?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, and it's because people don't think about transferable skills and competencies, right? And so when you think about what do teachers do well, they take information and they turn it into digestible information, right? They help people understand something they don't. So they can convey information to lay people or to people who don't understand a topic, right? They are typically organized and are deadline driven because they have to get the lesson done or else they're not teaching. They're running multiple classrooms depending on what grade level and also multiple different types of lessons. So there's an element of project management there. And so when you start to apply the hard and soft skills that teachers have to a framework, sometimes they just forget that, those skills can map to other roles because they don't know what's out there because they've been so embedded. And one thing I do know about, I had some teacher friends in the past where one thing I've noticed about teachers, and actually we recruiters do it too, is teachers talk about teaching non stop with other teachers. If they're around other teachers, that's all they talk about. I had this one kid in my classroom, and I remember that because I just would see it happen even with student teachers, and I'm like, okay, guys, how about current events? You guys follow politics? I think I'm going to start talking about sports soon. You know, but I find that we recruiters do that too, so it's a little. I guess it's anyone who specializes. I think just teachers congregate together a lot more.
Yeah, and if you think it's bad at the dinner that you're at with them,
The
you should hear it at
the
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 lunch
teachers lounge.
table. Yes.
Oh goodness! Now the application process is different for teachers too, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's very seasonal. I think that's the biggest difference for public employees, at least, is the school calendar drives the hiring process, and typically teacher jobs trickle in February, but March to April are that's the window for most. And then after that, there's going to be fewer. They're backfilled, they're last minute, usually not the prime destination you'd want to go to. But you can always gamble and say in the summertime, if they pop, there's not much competition.
Hmm.
And like my first teaching job, I didn't get it until early May. I was desperate, so I took it. And then in June, I actually had a couple call me up and say, "Hey, we got your application stuff back in March or April. We had one come open. We'll hire you now." And the risk was, well, I couldn't turn down the one in May because I just needed a job. I had a student loan payment coming due for the first time. So you can kind of gamble with that. As late as the first week of professional development is usually mid August, unless you're like in Texas. Sometimes it's first week of August. But for most of them, if a job does pop open, there's so few people applying that late in the summer that your odds are a lot better than a good job in March.
Okay, excellent. That's helpful insight, and I think very different from applying on LinkedIn or using the. I'm sure there's an applicant tracking system, but recruitment processes are far less seasonal, and probably I would imagine quicker too. Now, I would guess that's a huge barrier for people because they don't know where to start. I mean, when we started the conversation around this endeavor, you talked a lot about how you never even thought about going on LinkedIn or posting on LinkedIn, and now look at you.
Yeah,
You know, it's almost one of your homes now.
it is. That
You've embraced it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, well, and I did a post about this. I used to think it was cringe. I'm not a B2B SaaS marketing expert. Why would I post? I just set my profile there and hope that I get a job from it, which is totally the wrong way to
Wishful thinking.
yeah. But unfortunately, the teacher who is at their desk right now, head in their hands listening to this, that's probably how they're using LinkedIn if they're using it at all. Is I have a
Yeah,
profile, it says my current job, I have a decent little profile picture, no banner, no posts, and I'm just hoping a job pops into my in-mail and it's not.
yeah.
And as you know, the easy apply button is the opium of action. That's a complete
Hmm.
waste of time because 2,000 other people did it the same day you did.
And it's not even going to the applicant tracking system.
Nope.
It's in LinkedIn, so it's not even directing people there.
Which before I knew you and learned from you in your job search skills that you and Dan taught me, I did that 50 to 100 times probably the year before we met. And I,
Yeah, because it's the quickest way to submit an application.
yep. And here's how I rationalize that. Oh, I'm just increasing my surface area. Like I knew it was low probability, but I didn't think it was zero. So in my brain, I'd go to bed. I actually had a Sunday recurring to-do list on my to-do list app. Apply for 10 jobs. And I realized it's totally futile because one, the quantity of them doesn't have a lot to do with it. And two, I didn't network. I didn't apply on the website. I didn't project manage the job apps. I just fire them off and forget them. I just did everything wrong. And now I've realized teachers, that is, it feels like you're doing something. It's like treading water. You're not going anywhere. You're just getting tired from doing it.
Yeah. And you haven't heard back from most of them, so it's disheartening. People start to get that imposter syndrome. I hear it all the time when I talk to people, and it's no different for teachers. It's a pretty common phenomena for everyone, and unless you've got a truly unique skill set that is in very high demand, chances are you're going to have to do more legwork than just apply.
Yeah.
And unless you have a one-to-one match, you're coming from Netflix as a senior project manager in their video distribution platform, and you are going to Hulu as for a senior project manager working on their digital distribution platform. That's the only person that's getting the responses for the application,
Yeah.
because that's what people hire me to find.
Yep. In the teacher world, it unless you have computer science coding, you teach a subject like that or have a background before you got into your teaching role, it no one cares that you're a PE teacher, no one cares you're a history teacher, no one cares you're a classroom elementary teacher. They're not going to seek you out. And even principals, we've had students come through Future Proof You that thought, I have a master's and I'm basically the CEO of a school and have all these skills and experience. You're not going to have people knocking down your door offering you roles just because of that.
You have to connect the dots for them. You just have to, and that's the challenge for people. It's really mapping their skill set from being teacher specific to more generalized. And the first thing that they have to start doing is think about, well, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And what do I think I can do? There's some easy quick wins. Ed tech hires teachers a lot. You might be able to get a corporate role in training and development, although they typically want someone who has HR experience or HR education, because andragogy is slightly different from pedagogy or pedagogy, andragogy, whatever it's called. But it's not that different, and the mechanics are there. But instead of saying that you are creating a curriculum, you're doing instructional design, right? That's a different language than curriculum. And if you don't know that, you'll never be able to correctly articulate what you do in a way that the other person who's reading your resume or LinkedIn profile will resonate with.
Yeah, and I think you don't have to know what the role is to start building your bridge out of education. Even if you think you do, it's probably going to change.
Yeah.
But the paralysis by analysis that kicks in for teachers, I'm speaking from my own experience, is like, well, then I need to research on what type of role, what thing, based on my skills or my personality, would transfer. And then what you realize is that's just a total waste of time. And
Yeah.
looking back on my journey and having a lot of friends and colleagues and just kind of online connections I've made who have been through this pivot, what I would tell teachers is I'd give them 3 steps and I would write these down. Even better, I would take the teacher career pivot class with us live in April of 2025. If it's after that, you can find the digital download on the website. Here's the 3 steps. I didn't understand these. I wish someone would have just grabbed me and said, listen to this podcast and do what it says. It would have saved me 9 to 12 months of futility. Number 1, you need to do a skills inventory. And a mistake I made with the skills inventory, don't just do some online thing that gives you an assessment. You need to talk to people you have worked under. You need to talk to people you've worked with. If you have family, spouse, kids, like do the 360-degree assessment of your skills. I thought mine were very technical and content knowledge, the things that teachers value. And a couple of them that kept popping up, I had one person tell me this and it just kind of snapped into place. She said, the thing you're actually good at is simplifying complex ideas so that other people can understand them and making that engaging. So you take complicated, you make simple, and you explain in a way that people pay attention to. That's
And
literally,
that could be a lot of jobs.
yes. And that doesn't have
You
to
could do
be,
that in sales. You could do that in content creation. You could do that in a lot of different environments.
yep. Here's one. Somebody who has a very dense scientific background. They found that their skill set was I can take the technical jargon and translate it to the C-suite person and make it digestible, where they go, okay, here's this giant crazy report I don't understand. What matters here? Tell me what I need to know. And he realized, like, oh, I translate between the 2 levels of the super technical and the super practical. There are jobs in that skill.
The cool thing about teachers who are trying to pivot is typically the holdback isn't feeling like taking a step down salary wise. Because, until you're very advanced in your career, the salaries are kind of not even competitive with the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad to say, unfortunately, but you don't make as much as people who are working for-profit businesses. So, a lot of times it might even feel just like a lateral move with a lot more upward potential.
Yeah, the benefits can be a different story, but you're right, especially
Yeah.
rural states, like I'm in Wyoming, teachers with masters and advanced degrees, you're going to make way more. You're probably going to have a lot more flexibility, like hybrid, even remote as a possibility. Unless you're at a virtual school, there's no concept of that yet. Yeah, so do the skills inventory and just make a list. And the more simple they are, mine as a history teacher, it's not my understanding of the early Roman Republic. That doesn't transfer. But maybe it's making boring things sound fun. Okay, marketing. Like So just
Mhm.
ask those people, what do you think I'm good at? And if you don't, or for some reason can't, then another one to think about is what are the types of questions or problems that people bring to me? Not as a function of my job necessarily, but it could be like, what are the things that other teachers come to me for help with? So for me, it was technology. Like, how do I use this new Mac laptop the district just gave me? And I'd be like, did you know you can copy and paste from your iPhone to your Mac? And they're like, what? I didn't know. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I have a skill.
That's one of mine that used to come up in my skill. Like, I was always the go to, help me.
Yep,
Because I just learn these things like you, just like it, just absorb it immediately.
yep. So do that skills inventory. And you don't have to think about jobs, just think about the underlying simple skills that I have. The second step is you're going to identify time wasters because teachers are already overworked, super stressed. Unless it's the summertime on a traditional school calendar, you don't have time to take a night class and do all this stuff until you identify what you can cut out. For me personally, like you have to still be a good teacher, but you don't have to grade every paper as detailed as you would have. So sometimes in your teaching role, you can take your foot off the gas a little bit, and there's no shame in admitting that, especially if you want out. But you could think about I binge Netflix, I scroll Instagram, I just sit on the couch and daydream for an hour when I get home because I'm so exhausted. Whatever it is, you have to substitute skill development time for that. And sometimes it can be one to one. For me, I wasn't a big social media person, but I only used it to distract myself and waste time. Now I have examples of hooks from TikToks that I'm going to use that I screenshot if I'm on TikTok. And so maybe that's a little bit of me rationalizing my own behavior, but I look at social media differently because now it's one of my skills. And you can do that too. I mean, the other way you can do this, if you work out, I work out in the mornings. I don't listen to music. I do a podcast or an educational YouTube video while I'm on the treadmill or doing your yoga, whatever you do. And the point is, you're substituting time because you can't create it, and you can cut out the wasters or you can stack. While I do my chores on Sunday, I listen to the podcast about the psychology of sales because I know sales is one of my skills. And that way you don't feel overwhelmed and like, oh, I'll never see my kids. I'll never have a social life because I just don't have the time to do it. If you don't make the time by doing this, you're just more stuck. That's what I remind myself. I don't want to be stuck. Okay, I got to do it.
Yeah. It's really funny because if you think about it, a lot of our skill, you and I have similar skill sets. The only thing that kind of separates us is our knowledge. And so we apply our skill sets against our knowledge to do something. You have the skill set. Now, what you're doing and replacing with that time is new knowledge.
You know who's really good at acquiring new knowledge?
Teachers.
Teachers. That's I think my biggest skill that I've learned from teaching is I'm a great learner. How do I know how to learn? Because that's all I spend my time on with 28 kids per block is like, how do I
Yeah.
get this in their head and get them competent at it?
Well,
Dang.
and people forget, people think teachers just always remember everything. You're learning the lesson before you disseminate the lesson or relearning it because you've probably learned it in the past. It's not something that you just always pull out of thin air. I can't go back and say, "Oh, I remember all my stats courses from graduate school, so now I'm a stats person again." No, I didn't use that knowledge in my career. So
But you could
I
relearn it faster than I could because I never took
oh,
stats.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I could. Yeah.
We have the skills inventory 360. We have substitute skill time for time wasters. The third one in your three steps to building a bridge out of teaching is you have to share what you're doing. And this is
Yep.
probably the hardest one. For me, it was too. Like, oh, so I take a selfie every time I finish a Coursera course and put it on my Instagram? Maybe. I mean, that's better than nothing, honestly. But you have a student that you're coaching. If you're doing the Coursera coach or Coursera course learning or getting a new certificate, what did you encourage them to do?
Yeah, I told her, like, you're taking this course, post that you've completed it, tag the organization you took it through, put some relevant hashtags about project management, agile frameworks, etc. And that will get you more visibility with the people that you're trying to pivot towards. She also went and did a conference and started creating content at my suggestion across all the different content pieces that she saw and scheduled them out on LinkedIn, tagging that organization. She's getting responses from people who she met at that group. And and they're all engaging in each other's content. So she's starting to become someone who is getting the social proof that we talk about all the time of having more knowledge in that space than she did a year ago.
And
And she was an admin people. She's trying to move to project management. She's been managing projects for decades.
yep, just didn't have the
She
job
just
title.
hadn't the language. She didn't have the language for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And teachers are bad at this because, I can say this, I am one, and it was one of my biggest weaknesses. We live in our heads. We think the skill or the content you got from the conference is going to get you your next job. Well, guess what? No one knows that you have that. It's not
Yeah.
going to. And I don't mean that isn't important, but it's not the only thing. It's not the end all be all. Another one is, how often do you read a book or read an article, think about it, close it, move on? Like, what are you doing with that? A simple way to become more action oriented is start a blog, and once a week, here's what I've learned from all this training or these videos or these books. Or if you're doing work, let's say you want to get into something graphic or design, just share what you've done. Even if it's not good yet, you sitting there doing it in your office at 10 p.m. every night is not going to get you the next role, but the blog post or the LinkedIn tagging the person who taught you that might.
Yeah. Exactly. Because especially when you engage the people that are related to that information, again, their network is going to see that and they're relevant audience members for what your goal is.
Yes.
So it's like, it's just one of those things. It's funny too because if you look at the thing that's exciting about today is look at what you're doing on one of your engagements. You're doing marketing already. You're creating amazing stuff in Canva for your client, stuff that's blowing their minds. And you're enabled to do that because Canva is a tool that has made things so much easier for people who don't have traditional design skills, right? Now all you need is an eye. And that makes it like that's something I do for myself as well. And it's like not a lot of people could do that before. And now we're empowered by technology in and enabled to do things that maybe it makes other people feel like we're brilliant when it's like, oh, it was really easy, but you don't want to say it too much. Oh, it was so easy, anyone could do it.
The ultimate irony on that, John, is 3 years ago, I knew what Canva was. I was not invested in it, not skilled at all. I had two students in my class that kept doing their assignments in Canva because I said, I don't care what medium you put this in. They'd make presentations and infographics and all these cool things. And finally, I went over to them and I said, would you show me how you did that? Because in my brain, I go, if this 16, 17-year-old high school kid can do it, and the school account gives us all the pro features, I have to learn. And the only reason I really started diving into Canva and being invested in the platform is because my students showed me what cool stuff they did. And I thought, if they can do it, why can't I?
Yeah.
That's what almost any technology is. It could be an AI tool, it could be a graphic design thing, it could be audio, video editing software like we use. There's tons of things, but
Yeah.
well, I think the last point that I want to make to teachers is you also have to do an internal inventory of the pain of staying compared to the pain and the uncertainty of leaving. And since you're the psychology expert, I want to hear what your advice, but mine is there's the degrees of I complain every day at the teacher's lounge, but I'm not willing to jump. okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But be realistic with yourself versus if you're sitting here listening to this going, the pain of staying is worse. I want out. I will do what it takes. There's still going to be pain. It's just a different pain. And hopefully it's less.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that, and that's not obviously just teachers, right? I've been saying for 10 years, you know, I'd probably make more money if I just did my own agency, right? It took my pain threshold to be higher than my comfort threshold. And at that point, it was almost when I could have just probably crumbled a little bit or been like, you know what, maybe I'll move back to Connecticut, move in with my sister, and, bartend, right? I'll probably be happy then because I was so burnt out. And then I just bit the bullet and found that I was invigorated again and was excited because now it's not just my career, it's me. It's embodying everything I like to do, and removed most of the pain points of my existing or previous jobs. And so I think it really is about, in some ways just reducing, we're and I say this all the time, we're here to try and help reduce your fear, right? And what's the fear? And hopefully uncertainty as well. But like, what's the fear of leaving? That you're not going to get another job. And but we're not telling you go quit your job and then just go find a job. We're telling you you're going to have to sacrifice some time in order to build yourself up to be prepared and reduce the fear of uncertainty with finding something new. And your three steps are really to help do that. And once that fear is gone and there's certainty there, you can be more comfortable with that leap. Just like the student I had in my, or the coachee I have, right? She started the conversation with me as uncertain as could be about talking with people, and as uncertain as she could be with posting things that aren't perfect. And now she's posting every day, multiple times a day, bragging about her accomplishments. She's not necessarily, she's more comfortable with it. It's not 100% yet. But then she's also signed up for like 6 different networking events. So you rip the band-aid off, or as one of my former employers said, eat the frog,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just get it over with, and once you're done, it'll be gross when it happens, but afterwards you might find you have an appetite for frog's legs.
That's good.
And yeah.
Well, and I think the thing that you don't realize is happening, you're the psych person. I'm certified to teach it. I'm no expert. What you're actually doing is beginning to shift your identity outside of. I stand in front of a
Exactly.
class and I lecture on physics, or I have them write essays on Shakespeare. And I've struggled with this personally. It's you have imposter syndrome, and then
Hmm.
you behave in ways that it manifests or fulfills that your own fear that you have.
Yep.
And when you do the skills inventory, you substitute the time wasters for the skill building time, and you start sharing about it. You know what each one of those posts is doing? It's nudging your identity a little bit more out of the classroom, because you can't just full on dive out. You don't know what
Hmm.
to do. You don't have another big one. You don't have the network. The right people don't know you exist. You
Yeah.
probably know principals who would hire another teacher, but do you know hiring managers in a corporate environment for the type of work you want to do? No, because you don't have that network. How are you going to get
Yeah.
it? Part of it is sharing, and part of it is then going to the event or writing about the event.
Yeah. It's so true, and it's like I did the same thing. Like a lot of people didn't even know I studied psychology when I've been in the recruiting world, and I haven't accessed that part of my brain, even though I mean I have to a degree because I know about successful hiring strategies, which is a part of my master's degree. But up until recently, I hadn't been flexing that muscle as much. I've been allowed to do that in this environment, in coaching and training, because it's it's just a natural thing that people don't think about, that I can shed light on, that makes people go, oh, that's why I do this. And it again, it helps reduce that fear and give people a little bit more confidence going into a conversation or transitioning.
Yep. So let's demystify the teacher pivots. And if it's
Hmm.
April of 2025, then go in the show notes and click the link to sign up. If it's after April of 2025, there should be a digital copy. DM John Lovig on LinkedIn or myself, Aaron McKelkey, or just the Future Proof You page, which is also linked in the comments. And, teachers, you're not stuck unless you let yourself be. That doesn't mean you're magically going to find the perfect role and it's remote and it's double the salary. You're going to have to compromise things. From what I see, especially retirement, like you're not going to find a better retirement plan if you're a public school teacher, and probably health insurance. But those are golden handcuffs that often we put on ourselves. And talk to people who've left. A lot of them say, I don't lie awake at night knowing I have another $500 premium on my health insurance plan. I'm just glad that I don't have to grade papers because now I'm in the corporate world and not a teacher. That's what their
Yeah.
takeaway is. I've
Yeah.
I've had so many people tell me the golden handcuffs are imaginary. Don't let that be an obstacle.
Yeah. It's true. I had golden handcuffs in academia as a recruiter. Ironically, I worked in a university setting, and our healthcare was just top notch. And while I miss that level of healthcare, I don't miss it as much as I enjoy living in Brooklyn and making the kind of money I want to. I didn't go to Greece while I was living in Connecticut on my academic salary. I did on my recruiter commission.
Yep. And to have the freedom. I know there are teachers that daydream about this. Why couldn't I work from home some of the time? Why couldn't the staff meeting be a Loom or an email? Teachers, it's not going to be if you stay in education. It's not going to change. The technology and
Too
tools,
slow moving.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's been there. Think about COVID. We all did a semester online. We still, there are districts out there, not necessarily saying mine, that don't have a flexible learning day plan. They don't have there's bad roads or weather, we'll do it online. It's it's not going to change. Or the ultimate irony for me, we had a virtual parent teacher conference day and I was like, "Oh, maybe we'll start to get more hybrid." Teachers had to come in the building that night for parent teacher conference that was virtual, and guess what? The internet didn't work. It was like, "Oh my gosh." I wish I was making that up. We all sat there in our empty classrooms. I was like, why? Why did we do this?
That's my favorite when there's in office meetings, but everyone's on Zoom.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that doesn't exist in the corporate world, but at least there's hope of it changing or getting better. There just is not in public education.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's definitely.
we look forward to learning with you and sharing teacher career pivot ideas and meeting some inside recruiters with psych backgrounds. I tell John this all the time. It feels like a cheat code to know the stuff that he teaches you because you're not going to find it, on a LinkedIn article or a YouTube video from anybody else because he has such a unique skill set. But join us in the class April 2025. If not, find the download or DM us on LinkedIn. I am one of the three co-founders of Future Proof You, Aaron McKelkey. For our absent host, Dan Yu, and for John Lovig, thank you guys for joining us in this episode.
Thank you.